see some of you guys joining on Facebook here, and some of you guys that aren't on Facebook, the easiest way for me to look at some things, of course, are if you text that line, 314-425-5355. You text some of your totals, and also chat with me about what's happening outside right now. Unfortunately, we're in the back end of things, so as you guys are kind of joining us here, you'll see that I'm in the lower end of the screen, but I've kept everything on the full screen so that you guys can take a look at this a little better. So if you guys, the first one of you guys are joining, welcome. I want to talk about what occurred and maybe why some things are different than the last storm, right? And this is not the last storm, but certainly as we try to dig out and we're trying to get back to normalcy, we see that. I do want to talk about some of the snow totals so far. So some of you guys have texted in your snowfall totals. Also, I will look at some of the comments. I'll talk through it briefly and then go through the comments here. If you guys have questions about travel, road conditions, and I'll try to zoom down as much as we can. So I'll get through that, and then I'll look at your comments and answer them directly. So appreciate that at the moment. One thing that we can look at, some of our 5 on your side weather watchers here have shared some totals, and of course we've got some totals for other people as well. Valley Mine's up to 6 inches. So further south, that's where we generally have seen most of that. Even Belleville got to 4.5 inches, so that one kind of surprised me. But Nashville up to 3, Troy, even in South City, we got 2 inches of snow. Some of the other higher totals that we've seen: Farmington close to 6 inches, Fredericktown close to 6 inches, Deloge at 3, Olney and Chesterfield at 2. So, like I said, even though it's still actively lightly snowing, most of us are on the tail end of things. Even as we look at this big picture here, skiers out in Wildwood. This is one of the first days in recent memory that I have not seen them making snow, even when it was snowing during the big. When we got upwards of 9 inches of snow in Wildwood, they were still making snow. After today, they have not made it. Farmington, you can see those roads are clear. Also in Highland, Cuba, no planes taking off at the moment here at the airport. We still remain, at least in some fashion, through 6 o'clock. You'll notice that Rolla in Reynolds County have been taken out of that winter weather advisory as that snow continues to move out. And like I've stressed throughout most of this time, I think what we've kind of talked about is the fact that while a lot of us are under this winter weather advisory and winter storm warning for, the period of from 6 o'clock last night through 6 o'clock today, a lot of us really weren't going to be seeing snow at all of those times. And we'll probably shave some of those counties off as that goes along. So that's something to look at. And this is why, right? We can see the back edge of that snow working its way in, and that's one of the reasons in Rolla that you're not dealing with that anymore. But I do want to focus on a couple of more spots here that still have some of that moderate snow, and most of it is out of the Missouri side completely. Now you'll see where those darker shades are out of our area completely, but there are some spots from Farmington to Prairie du Rocher, right really between Festus and Perryville on 55 South. That's where I think right now we have, and it'd be this area right now that I'll highlight. This would be the area that I would think has probably upwards of maybe another 1/4 of an inch briefly here for you. So that's going to be something that we look at for you here over the coming hour or so. So I would expect that to be something that we'll watch out for. Otherwise, in the city of St. Louis, even in West County, some of these spots, you're still seeing, like I mentioned, Belleville is getting some pretty decent snow. And when you look at that total, you look at some of these darker shades that have kind of worked their way through Belleville. And even as I kind of scan through this, and we've seen a pretty consistent dosing of snow with some of that additional heavier band of snow here and there. And that's what we're still continuing to see here at this moment. So that's what I'll zoom in on right now, just to kind of give you an idea of maybe the back edge, at least in the city, a bit closer to the 270 loop. Don't get distorted too much by the end of the snow because it's still snowing behind this. What you'll find is the distorted picture here, the radar image, just because the Weldon Spring is where the radar is, and that's why you're going to get this kind of bubble here that's a little weird and wonky, maybe showing up there. So otherwise, there are a few flurries behind that, and I think that's not going to be out of the question here over the course of the next several hours, even as I work my way down to Hillsborough, DeSoto. But when you look at Prairie du Rocher, New Athens, Freeburg, Mascoutah, Breeze and Carlisle, O'Fallon, you still got another 3 to 4 hours of snow. So I think you're still going to continue to add maybe just a little bit. It may be another inch or so, but it's something to watch out for. You'll see the back edge has finally worked its way through Troy. You're now done with the snow. Warrenton, you're now done with the snow. Areas to our west like Herman, Washington, Sullivan, Cuba, we talked about that. You're now done with the snow. That was evident on the camera as well. And what you're looking at here in terms of some of the roadway pictures, Our MoDOT cameras are showing better conditions, and I think traffic-wise that will show up as well. There's a lot of green on this map, and I think that's important to note because at 9 o'clock that was not the case. At noon it was better, but it wasn't great at 10. It was better at 11, and at noon it was improving. But Paul was in at traffic at noon, kind of giving you an idea of some of the stuff that was going on, and some of the spots that really popped out to me as I zoom in on a few of these were obviously 255 and 55, but it really 44 was a spot that was really slow. And I think what you're seeing is the roads are starting to get clearer. I do want to work my way south here on some of these spots where it was a little more poor earlier, and it's actually better. But like I said, Perryville, you're seeing a little bit of that snow, and that's kind of out of our area, I understand. But there may be some slower spots on 170 southbound, as suggested by the traffic data. But when I'm talking about 44, I think things are much better, especially now that I'm looking into areas that it's really not snowing anywhere, right? So, even in areas in the Metro East, that accident has been there for a while, so it's kind of an old icon. So I'm not really too concerned about that quite as much. So, like I said, I think looking at some of the data, the speeds, what's happening here, I think what you're going to continue to see, better conditions the rest of the night, right? So if you have travel plans the rest of the night, notice that we're above freezing. And that's going to be a huge thing for us, is the fact that, we're above freezing. Obviously, that's a good thing, right? But that's going to make the roadways much, much better. So I'm optimistic for improving conditions and the plows to catch up and some of the treatment that they put down to actually work their way out. So as we look ahead, the powdery snow continues through the early afternoon. I don't think I think we're within a half an hour before it's done by Missouri, on the Missouri side. So, so that's one of the things that we're looking at. And, overall, it will taper in the Metro East by sunset. So that's going to be something that I think is going to be on the positive side here. But it's still going to be around with us for the rest of the evening. So do expect that for the rest of the day, temperatures still right above freezing, and then they'll dip down below freezing after that. And I think that's what you're going to continue to see throughout this afternoon, is watch where that snow eventually works its way out. 4, 5, 6 o'clock, maybe a flurry or two, will finally dip down below freezing. And as we head into the overnight hours, I do think that there's no doubt about it. We are going to dip below freezing for tonight. So today's snowfall really through 6 o'clock, especially as many of those winter storm warnings or winter weather advisories at least remain in place. I think we'll see upwards of 1 inch more possible. I think that's probably on the high side, but up to an inch more is possible for most of us. Use obviously extra caution on the roads because, still, especially as the sun sets and we haven't seen much sunshine, but the fact that the sun is up does make a difference in making those roads, just because we do get some of that solar radiation, even though we don't see it quite as much. It does make a difference, obviously, with temperatures above freezing. Like I said, with us being above freezing, we're going to head below freezing overnight, and it's going to get cold again. So there's going to be some refreeze. So do expect that there are going to be some slick spots with that freeze-thaw cycle. So be careful when you're walking outside. I've already seen a lot of reports of people falling and slipping. But look at tomorrow afternoon. Even spots that got 4, 5, 6 inches of snow to our south, they are above freezing. And so that's going to be much, much better. We're going to be in really good shape here, I think. So we've got a lot of improving conditions here overall. And what you're going to continue to see for the most part is we will see another cold morning. But for this weekend, I just want to give you the 7-day forecast, and I'm going to answer some of your questions here in the comments. Of course, we're in the 30s. We're at 33, so that's a positive. We've gone up. But then Saturday and Sunday, look at temperatures. They're actually above freezing here. 35, 38, that's where a lot of these side roads are going to get cleared. So if you're wondering about more virtual days or no school again on Monday, I just don't see that. So if you're kind of cooped up in the house, you want to get out and about, I think this is going to be a good weekend for it. It's going to be one of those rare weekends here in January during our coldest period where this is going to feel pretty good for us. So let me get back to the radar, and then I'm going to answer a few of these questions here as we look ahead. I've got Sheila and Mary Mark asks, how long do we have until the next snow? So let me just kind of briefly pull that up, and I want to pull up just the absolute tiniest chance, just to give you maybe a date here if you're watching here, because I know a lot of people are real tired of this stuff. No more shoveling, no more of this stuff. Let me pull up just some of and I won't be able to pull this up on your screen. I will get to a point where I can do that. It wouldn't surprise me to see a few flurries on Sunday, but that's not going to be a huge issue. Let's see. As far as the next snowfall is concerned, I'm pulling up one of the models. That could be the 20th. Let me look at another one of the models. Right now, I'm going to say the earliest that it would be possible is the 19th or the 20th. So that is 8, 9 days away, right? So that is a super long time away for any thought process of snow, but it's not out of the question. So I think we got a few days to get us a break here. So and that could change, Barry. And obviously, we really talk about how things can really change. Most of these storms that we track, these systems are way thousands and thousands of miles away. Angie asked if there's a concern for a refreeze, and there will be a concern for a refreeze here as we head into the overnight hours. Like I said, I do think that we're going to start to get colder here. Let me see if I can find that's a future cast. Let me see if I can find something that's a little bit better. I'll just edit this. We're going to edit this on the fly. I'm going to try to bring you guys a couple of new graphics here. Edit this on the fly as we talk about some of our overnight lows, because they're not going to be crazy. I'm going to edit this on the fly and show you guys what's happening here, and that kind of gives you guys an idea of what I sit here and do generally throughout the day. And you're just kind of looking at it here. This is going to be Saturday at 6 a.m. We're going to change that. We're going to change that. We're going to hit this button, and there we go. Oops, that really raced through. Saturday at 6 o'clock. I mean, we're going to see some temperatures that are going to be cold tonight. There's no doubt about that. So there's a lot of refreezing going on. So, Angie asked about that. So I do think that there are going to be some slick spots. Ken gave us an update about how it would say close to 3 or 4 inches in Eureka. I think that's a good bet. So I appreciate that, Ken. And Christy asked how my snowblower worked. It worked pretty well. This snow the last snow was so wet and heavy that I really had a hard time getting through some of it, because obviously we had 8 or 9 inches, and I had to do the start it, restart it, start it, restart it type of thing. And I got a big, powerful machine, so it was a lot of snow. Obviously, that's the most snow I've ever snow blown in a long time. So I might have to do it again today. We'll see how that goes. But it is kind of wet. It's at least more pleasant to be outside. But it's still, even as you kind of see behind me just a little bit, it's still actively snowing, and the snow has been coating all over the trees as we look outside. Let's see if we've got any more information here as we look at some of our chat line. Just got a lot of pictures, which we appreciate. Cars that are under all this snow, or tree branches that have come down, things like that as the snow continues to get on there. But like I said, a lot of the snow will continue to drop down. And I really think that we're still 8, 9 days away from even an earliest potential call for another opportunity for snow. So we do at least have a good break here. And I think, like I said, I'm optimistic on the fact that these roads, as we look at some of these roads, this one specifically on 44, where you're moving pretty smooth. So that's a positive here, I think, in terms of what's going on right now. Like I said, even as I look at the latest traffic data, with the road temperatures being just above the air temperature, I think we're generally in pretty good shape. It doesn't really matter where I look. Earlier at one point, I think there's a slower spot here closer to Mount Vernon. That's where you're seeing, if you're going on 64 and you're really taking a trip, that's where you're seeing maybe some really slow spots. But I think overall, now that's where we had a tractor trailer that was overturned, but that is improving. And that's probably where it's snowing the hardest. But like I said, those things are only getting better with time here over the next several hours. As we continue to look at a few things, not only did I want to show you the last part of that, but let's look at those snowfall total maps for those of you guys that are just joining us here. And I'll once again implore you to see. Thanks, Ken, for your nice words. Let's look at some of our snowfall totals here. Farmington, close to 6 inches. Like I said, those are the areas that were under that. When you look at this map, and I'll go back to it really quickly. When you look at this big map that shows all the winter weather alerts here, you look at all this to the south, where we have this winter storm warning in Farmington, Mount Vernon, and really our southern areas that were under the ice storm warning the other day. That's when you look at some of these snowfall totals and you see, these numbers were definitely on the higher side, right? That's where we got those 5s and 6s, 4 5s and 6s for the most part, 5.7, 5, 5.5. And then as you look closer to the other spots throughout the area, they were mostly like 2 or 3. So there was a 2 or 3 or 4, 4.5 in Belleville, Valley Mines at 6. So as I look at maybe some of the other things here from some of our chat with our emergency managers, let's see if we've got anything. Let's see if we've got any updates here. Um, Silex has got 3 inches. Like I said, we've got most of those are just all things that I've updated you on. So yeah, for the most part, I think it's we're in pretty good shape here for most of this here. So as we continue to look at most of this, the radar will get much quieter the rest of the day. And this is probably my last long update that I'll do for you guys here on 5 Plus and Facebook. But I really think that conditions are improving because the snowfall rates are lighter. You know, you look at, say, let's just point out areas like right here where I'm going to put this arrow. You look at those areas, that's probably 1/4 of an inch per hour snowfall rates now in Prairie du Rocher, Sparta, Fayetteville, and Nashville. And you're probably going to see maybe another 1/2 an inch as this lingers for the next 2 to 3 hours. But when you look behind this, that's the key for me is there's not much snow and it's much lighter. And this is where, you know, this snowfall rate is maybe 1/10 of an inch per hour, right? It's very low. The main difference from the last storm is that, you know, this storm doesn't quite have the moisture content. I put this graphic out maybe a couple of days ago, and I want to say, what's the difference between this storm? And I'll bring this back up again, right? And this was a couple of days ago that we first brought to you in the Weather Impact Weather Center was, what's the difference between these two storms? And the main difference was this storm is all snow, right? So, and I never wanted to sound like this, but it was not a wishy-washy, well, we're not sure if we're going to get enough sleet or freezing rain to undercut the snow totals. This line's here, this line's here. You know, I think what we're going to see is, you know, it just was all snow, right? So it was easier to figure out. There also, it wasn't as windy. So, you know, our visibilities have been down, but we're not seeing that wind-blown snow that, you know, was the case for the last few times. And with less moisture, we had lower snowfall rates. So where the last system was between 10 to 12 inches per 1 inch of liquid precipitation, this one was more along the lines of 15 to 1. You know, normally the gold standard of just as we think of things is at 10, for every 10 inches of snow, it's 1 inch of liquid. So when it gets drier or there's, you know, the temperature changes, perhaps we get into the 15 to 1 ratio. And that's kind of where we are right now. We have a drier snow, less moisture content. So that's kind of what we continue to look at right now. And so with less moisture, we have lower snowfall rates. We had just an absolute conveyor belt of moisture from the Gulf last time, and that fed into that warm air mass and over the top of the cold stuff. And that's where it got real confusing, a little bit dangerous actually, because we dealt with the ice and snow and freezing rain. So we didn't quite have that much variance here from that. So like I mentioned, Gage asked if there was any report of thunder snow down south. No thunder snow. No thunder snow here. Not quite the system for that. They might have had some somewhere in Tennessee or Atlanta, but that would have been very isolated. The last system was much more primed for that. Not quite as much of the dynamics for that system as most of this moves out here for now. So almost 5.5 on our deck in Ironton. Thanks for that report, Sarah. So we'll definitely include that in one of our bigger snowfall totals, and I'll share that with some people as I continue to maybe add a few more snowfall totals to some of that map here. So those are the main things I think when we're talking about what's going on. For the most part, I do think that we'll continue to see you know, really just light snow off and on throughout this afternoon. So once again, I'll show you the future cast as I work my way out of this. We're still going to continue to look at relatively dry roads, and this is kind of the last call for what we can expect this afternoon. Once again, published this morning. This still rings true. Powdery snow continues through the early afternoon. You know, it's tapering in Missouri within the next 20 minutes. It really is. And I think it'll be tapering in the Metro East by sunset. So if you have travel plans, I think they'll be safe, but there will be a potential for refreeze. The positive news is I don't think it's cold enough to create as many issues, but there will absolutely be the possibility for a slick spot. And Sissy just said all the side streets in St. Louis City are just terrible. So keep that in mind. I do think that if we can get them plowed and all taken care of by Saturday and Sunday, the temperatures are going to cooperate during the day, and we'll get some more sunshine. So that's going to help things be a little more safe, I think, from a weather standpoint. I can't add to any other standpoint than that, but from a weather standpoint, I got better temperatures, and I don't have a significant frigid air mass on the way until Monday. So I think we'll get some better opportunities to get things kind of cleared up here for us here. So like I mentioned, I'll leave you with this loop here as we got another picture coming into the chat line, and we appreciate that. We're going to continue to get, we got, let's see, Cherryville, Missouri, 5 inches of snow. So looking at that, so we appreciate that report there. So once again, we're going to continue to look at pretty decent conditions here. I will, looks like I appreciate some of your reports as well. Like I mentioned, conditions are improving. Snow is winding down, and for the most part, over the next several hours. Kathy asked how much snow was in Edwardsville. I would say we're running between 3 and 4 inches. I haven't gotten a direct report, but based on what I've kind of seen, I think that's a pretty good guess here, somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. 4 would be on the high side. So anyway, I will leave you with this looping radar as we continue to track these storms. I know Jim and Scott are going to be in this evening. Of course, Jim's got another update on air coming up at about 1:56, and he'll be on there as part of our NBC News Now, which you can stream as well. He'll be in there. And then, of course, Scott, we'll see you at 4 with an update. And most of us will have snow come to a close at that point. I know meteorologist Tracy Hinton is live in the storm tracker. She's going to be talking about some of those roads. So if you got a problem road, tell her, tell them. They'll kind of give you a good idea. Stephanie asked how many inches in Creve Coeur. It's been about 3 inches or so from what I've seen. So like I said, I'll leave you with this looping radar for now as we continue. And like I said, just wanted to try something a little different. You can see the snow behind me. Just kind of talk to you here. I talked to you this morning while we were having a little coffee. And so we'll try to work out some of the kinks here and make maybe look a little better. I tried to light myself a little better this time, and the glare of the snow certainly doesn't help. So anyway, I hope you guys have a night, and I will let you guys get back to it. Hopefully you can enjoy some of the snow, even though it's caused kind of an issue here over the last few days in regards to what's going on outside on the roads. But I do think things will be improving the rest of the night.